Hello! I am going to announce right away that I am having some technical issues. It is not conducive for my phone to be able to use the particular Facebook that we have set up for the Mary Esther Library. For whatever reason, the new UI that they have and updated with does not work and is not compatible with my phone, even after clearing the cache and allowing pop-ups and doing the link for reverting it back to the original type of Facebook. So now I am filming on Sheila's tablet, which she has graciously loaned for the time being, which is why there's so many dark shadows around my face and makes me look really ridiculous, but please excuse that. Hopefully you can hear me. Can everybody hear me? I hope so. I can't tell if you can or not, but I'm also recording this on my phone, so I could post it later if need be, because this is not coming out the way I need it to be, and oh my gosh, I look really tired. Okay, professional. The last time that we had our book club meeting, we had talked about, you know, how Aza's OCD was extremely prevalent in her life, and you know that she was having a hard time connecting to other people because of it. I know that we're on section 6, and so that would make us over to chapter 16. Now, I know that Aza had some difficulty connecting with humans, but she had a much easier time talking with Davis while she was texting him, as opposed to having it be something in person. It was a little less personal for her, so she felt like she could open up more and not have to worry and be so aware of her body and her bodily functions and everything that were upsetting her. So last time we said let's write a poem that would kind of allude to any of your inner feelings, you know, and what that means about you. I did a sort of haiku. Mine was, soft glowing edges seem so very inviting. Look a bit closer. Bright burning edges, a black hole in the center, consuming my soul. And that is from my own personal mental struggles. Seem a lot brighter than I might be if you dig a little deeper. So, okie dokie. I'm going to open up my water and we'll get started. Thank you very much for being patient with us. Chapter 16. And for a while, we found ways to be us, hanging out IRL occasionally, but texting and FaceTiming almost every night. We'd found a way to be on a Ferris wheel without talking about being on a Ferris wheel. Some days I fell deeper into spirals than others, but changing the band-aid sort of worked, and the breathing exercises and the pills and everything else sort of worked too. And my life continued. I read books and did homework, took tests and watched TV with my mom, saw Daisy when she wasn't busy with Michael, read and reread that college guide, and imagined the array of futures that it promised. And then one night, bored and missing the days when Daisy and I spent half our lives together at Applebee's, I read her Star Wars stories. Daisy's most recent story, A Ray of Hot, had been published the week before. I was astonished to see that it had been read thousands of times. Daisy was kind of famous. The story, narrated by Rey, takes place on Tatooine, where lovebirds Rey and Chewbacca have stopped off to pick up some cargo from an 8-foot-tall dude named Calkino. Chewie and Rey are accompanied by a blue-haired girl named Malaya, who Rey describes as my best friend and greatest burden. They meet up with Calkinko at a pod race, where Calkino offers them 2 million credits to take the 4 boxes of cargo to Utapu. I've got a weird feeling about this, Ayla said. I rolled my eyes. Ayla couldn't get anything right, and the more she worried, the worse she made everything. She had the moral integrity of a girl who'd never been hungry, always shitting on the way Chewie and I made a living without noticing that our work provided her with food and shelter. Chewie owed Ayala a life debt because her father had died saving Chewie years ago, and Chewie was a Wookiee of principle, even when it wasn't convenient. Ayala's morals were all convenience because easy living was the only kind of living she'd ever known. Ayala mumbled, "This isn't right." She reached into her mane of blue hair and plucked out a strand and then twirled it around her finger. A nervous habit, but then all of her habits were nervous. I kept reading, my gut clenching as I did. Ayala was horrible. She interrupted Chewie and Rey while they were making out on board the Millennium Falcon with an annoying question about the hyperdrive that a reasonably competent 5-year-old could figure out. She screwed up the shipment by opening one of the cargo cases, revealing power cells that shot off so much energy they almost blew up the ship. At one point, Daisy wrote, Ayala wasn't a bad person, just a useless one. The story ended with the triumphant delivery of the power cells, but because one had lost some of its energy when Ayala opened the box, the recipients knew our intrepid heroes had seen the cargo, and a bounty was placed on their heads. Or should I say, our heads. All of which meant the stakes would be even higher in next week's story. There were dozens of comments. The most recent one was, "I love to hate Ayala. Thank you for bringing her back." Daisy had replied to that comment with, Thanks for reading." I read through the stories in reverse chronological order and discovered all the previous ways Ayala had ruined things for Chewie and Rey. The only time I'd ever done anything worthwhile was when, overcome by anxiety, I threw up on a hut named Yonta, creating a momentary distraction that allowed Chewie to grab a blaster and save us from certain death. I stayed up too late reading, and then later, still thinking about what I'd say to Daisy the next morning, my thoughts careening between furious and scared, circling around my bedroom like a vulture. I woke up the next morning feeling wretched, not just tired, but terrified. I now saw myself as Daisy saw me. Clueless, helpless, useless, less. As I drove to school, my head pounding from sleeplessness, I kept thinking about how I'd been scared of monsters as a kid. When I was little, I knew monsters weren't, real, but I also knew I could hurt things and be hurt by things that weren't real. I knew that made-up things mattered and could kill you. I felt like that again after reading Daisy's stories, like something invisible was coming for me. I expected the sight of Daisy to piss me off, but when I actually saw her sitting on the steps outside of school, bundled up against the cold with a gloved hand waving at me, I felt like I deserved it, really. Like Ayala was the thing Daisy had to do to live with me. She stood up as I approached. "You okay, Holmesy?" Daisy asked. I nodded. I couldn't really say anything. My throat felt tight, like I might start to cry. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I'm just tired," I said. "Holmesy, don't take this the wrong way, but you look like you just got off of work from your job playing a ghoul at a haunted house, and now you're in a parking lot trying to score some meth." "I'll be sure not to take that the wrong way." She put her arm around me. "I mean, you're still gorgeous, of course. You can't ungorgeous yourself, Holmesy, no matter how hard you try. I'm just saying you need some sleep. Do some self-care, you know?" I nodded and shrugged off her embrace. "We haven't hung out in forever, just the two of us," she said. "Maybe I come over later." I wanted to tell her no, but I was thinking about how Ayala always said no to everything, and I didn't want to be like my fictional self. "Sure," I said. "Michael and I are having a homework night, but I should have about 142 minutes after school if we go straight to your house, which happens to be the running time of Attack of the Clones." "Homework night?" I asked. Michael appeared from behind me and said, "We're reading A Midsummer Night's Dream to each other for English." "Seriously?" "What?" Daisy said. "It's not my fault we're adorable. But first, Yoda lightsaber battling at your house after school. Cool?" "Cool. It's a date," she said. 6 hours later, we lay on the floor next to each other, bodies propped up with couch cushions, and watched Anakin Skywalker and Padme fall for each other in extremely slow motion. Daisy considered Attack of the Clones to be the most underrated Star Wars film. I thought it was kind of crap, but it was fun to watch Daisy watch it. Her mouth literally moved with each line of dialogue. I was looking at my phone mostly, scrolling through articles about Pickett's disappearance, looking for anything that might connect joggers or to a jogger's mouth. I'd meant it when I told Noah that I'd keep looking, but the clues we had just didn't seem much like clues at all. I want to like Jar Jar because hating Jar Jar is so cliche, but he was the worst, Daisy said. I actually killed him years ago in my fic. It felt amazing. My stomach turned, but I concentrated on my phone. What are you looking at? She asked. Just reading about the Pickett investigation, seeing if anything's new. Noah is really screwed up about it, and I don't know. I just want to help him somehow. Holmesy, we got the reward. It's over. Your problem is you don't know when you've won. Yeah, I said. I mean, Davis gave us the reward so that we would drop it. So, drop it. Yeah, okay, I said. I knew she was right, but she didn't have to be such an asshole about it. I thought the conversation was over, but a few seconds later, she paused the movie and continued talking. It's just like, this isn't going to be some story where the poor penniless girl gets rich and then realizes that the truth matters more than money and establishes her heroism by going back to being the poor penniless girl, okay? Everyone's life is better with Pickett disappeared. Just let it be. No one's taking away your money, I said quietly. I love you, Holmesy, but be smart. Got it, I said. Promise? Yeah, I promise. And we break hearts, but we don't break promises, she said. You say that's your motto, but you spend 99% of your life with Michael now. Except right now I'm hanging out with you and Jar Jar Binks, she said. We went right back to watching the movie. As it ended, she squeezed my arm and said, I love you, then raced off to Michael's place. Later that night, I got a text from Davis. Him. You around? Me. I am. You want to FaceTime? Him. Could I possibly see you IRL? Me. I guess, but I'm less fun IRL. Him. I like you IRL. Is now good? Me. Now's good. Him. Dress warm. It's cold out, and the sky is clear. Harold and I drove over to the Pickett compound. He's not much for cold weather, and it seemed to me that I could hear something in his engine tightening up. But he held it together for me, that blessed car. The walk from the driveway to Davis's house was frigid, even in my winter coat and mittens. You never think much about weather when it's good, but once it gets cold enough to see your breath, you can't ignore it. The weather decides when you think about it. It's not the other way around. As I approached the front door, it opened for me. Davis was sitting on the couch next to Noah, playing their usual Starfighter video game. Hi, I said. Hey, Davis said. Sup, Noah added. Listen, bud, Davis said as he stood up. I'm gonna go for a walk with Asa before she debundles. Back in a bit. Cool? He reached over and mussed Noah's hair. Cool, Noah said. I read Daisy's stories, I told him as we walked. The grass of the golf course was still cut perfectly short, even though the only golfer in the family had now been missing for months. They're pretty good, right? I guess. I was distracted by how terrible Ayala is. She's not all bad, just anxious. She causes 100% of the problems in the stories. He nudged his shoulder against me sweetly. I kinda liked her, but I guess I'm biased. We walked around the whole property until we eventually stopped at the pool. Davis tapped a button on his phone, and the pool cover rolled away. We sat down on the lounge chairs next to each other, and I watched the water from the pool steam into the cold air as Davis lay back to look up at the sky. I don't understand why he's so stuck inside of himself when there is this
endlessness to fall into.
Who is?
Noah.
I noticed he'd reached into his coat pocket. He pulled something out and twirled it in his palm. At first I thought it might be a pen, but then as he moved it rhythmically through his fingers, like a magician playing with cards, I realized it was the Iron Man.
Don't judge me, he said. It's been a bad week.
I just don't think Iron Man is much of a
You're breaking my heart, Asa. Oh, so, you see Saturn up there?
Using his Iron Man as a pointer, he told me how you can tell the difference between a planet and a star, and where the different constellations were. And he told me that our galaxy was a big spiral, and that lots of galaxies were.
Every star we can see right now is in that spiral. It's huge.
Does it have a center?
Yeah, he said. Yeah, the whole galaxy is rotating around this supermassive black hole. But very slowly. I mean, it takes our solar system like 225 million Earth years to orbit the galaxy.
I asked him if the spirals of the galaxy were infinite, and he said no. And then he asked about my spirals. I told him about this mathematician, Kurt Gödel, who had this really bad fear of being poisoned. So much that he couldn't bring himself to eat food unless it was prepared by his wife. And then one day his wife got sick and had to go into the hospital, so Gödel stopped eating. I told Davis how even though Gödel must have known that starvation was a greater risk than poisoning, he just couldn't eat, and so he starved to death at 71. He cohabitated with the demon for 71 years, and then it got him in the end. When I'd finished the story, he asked,
"Do you worry that that'll happen to you?"
And I said, "It's so weird to know you're crazy and not be able to do anything about it. It's not like you believe yourself to be normal. You know there's a problem, but you can't figure out a way to fixing it. Because you can't be sure, if you're Gödel, you can't just be sure your food isn't poisoned."
"Do you worry that'll happen to you?"
he asked again. I worry about a lot of things. We kept on talking for so long that the stars moved above us until eventually he said,
"Wanna swim?"
"Bit cold," I said.
"Pool's heated,"
he answered. He stood up and pulled off his shirt and kicked out of his jeans while I watched. I liked watching him take off his jeans. He was skinny, but I liked his body. The small but sinewy muscles in the back, his goosebump legs shivering. He jumped into the water.
"Magnificent," he said.
"I don't have a bathing suit."
"Well, if you have a bra and underwear, that's basically a bikini."
I laughed and took off my coat and then stood up. "Do you mind turning around?" I asked him. He turned toward the dimly lit terrarium where the billionaire-in-waiting was hiding somewhere in her artificial forest. I wriggled out of my jeans and pulled off my shirt. I felt naked, even though technically I wasn't, but I dropped my hands to my side and said, "Okay, you can look." I slid into the warmth of the pool next to him, and he put his hands on my waist under the water, but didn't try to kiss me. The terrarium was behind him, and now that my eyes were fully adjusted to the dark, I could see the Tuatara on a branch, staring at us through one of her red-black eyes. "Tu is watching us," I said.
"She's such a perv,"
Davis answered, and then he turned to look at the animal. Her green skin had some kind of yellow moss growing on it, and I could see her teeth as she breathed with her mouth slightly open. Her miniature crocodile tail flickered suddenly, and Davis, startled, curling into me, and then he laughed.
"I hate that thing,"
he said. It was freezing when we got out. We didn't have any towels, so we carried our clothes in our arms and ran back to the house. Noah was still on the couch playing the same game. I hustled past him and jogged up the marble stairs. Once we were dressed, we went to Davis's bedroom. He put the Iron Man on his bedside table and knelt down to show me how his telescope worked. He plugged in some coordinates into a remote control, and the telescope moved itself. When it stopped, Davis stopped to look through the lens and cleared the way for me.
"That's Tuaseti,"
he said. The way the telescope was zoomed in, I couldn't see anything but darkness and one jittering disk of white light.
12 light years away, similar to our sun, but a little smaller. 2 of its planets might actually be habitable. Probably not, but maybe. It's my favorite star.
I didn't know what I was supposed to be seeing. It was just a circle like any other. But then he explained.
I like to look at it and think about how the sun's light looks to someone in Tuaseti's solar system. Right now, they're seeing our light from 12 years ago. In the light that they're seeing, my mom has 3 years to live. This house has just been built, and my mom and dad are always fighting about the layout of the kitchen. In the light they see, you and I, we're just kids. We've got the best and worst of it in front of us.
We still have the best and worst of it in front of us, I said.
I hope not,
He said.
I sure as hell hope the worst is behind me.
I pulled away from Tau Ceti's 12-year-old light and I looked up at Davis. I took his hand, and part of me wanted to tell him that I loved him, but I wasn't sure if I really did. Our hearts were broken in the same places. That's something like love, but maybe not quite the thing itself. It sucked having a dead person in your family, and I knew what he meant about seeking solace in the old light. 3 years from now, I knew he'd find a different favorite star, one with older light to gaze upon. And when the time caught up with that one, he'd love a farther star, and a farther one, because you can't let the light catch up with the present. Otherwise, you'd forget. That's why I like looking at my dad's pictures. It was all the same thing, really. Photographs are just light and time. I should go, I said quietly.
Can I see you this weekend?
Yeah, I said.
Could we hang out at your house next time, maybe?
Sure, I said, if you don't mind being harassed by my mother. He assured me he didn't, and then we hugged goodbye, and as I left him alone in his room, he knelt back down to the telescope. When I got home that night, I told Mom that Davis wanted to come over this weekend. Is he your boyfriend? She asked. I guess so. He respects you as an equal? Yeah. He listens to you as much as you listen to him. Well, I'm not great at talking, but yes, he listens to me. He's really, really sweet, and also at some point, you just have to trust me, you know? She sighed. All I want in this world is to keep you. Keep you from hurt, keep you from stress, all that. I hugged her. You know I love you. I smiled. Yeah, Mom. I know you love me. You definitely don't have to worry about that. After going to bed that night, I checked on Davis's blog. Doubt thou that the stars are fire? Doubt that the sun doth move? William Shakespeare. It doesn't move, of course. Well, it does, but not around us. Even Shakespeare assumed fundamental truths about the fundament that you turned out to be wrong. Who knows what lies I believe or you do? Who knows what we shouldn't doubt? Tonight, under the sky, she asked me, why do all the ones about me have quotes from The Tempest? Is it because we're shipwrecked? Yes. Yes. It is because we are shipwrecked. I hit refresh after reading it just in case, and there was a new entry posted minutes before. There is an expression in classical music. It goes, we went out to the meadow. It's for those evenings that can only be described in that way. There were no walls, there were no music stands, there weren't even any instruments. There was no ceiling, there was no floor. We all went out to the meadow. It describes a feeling. I know she's reading this right now. Hi. I felt like we went out to the meadow tonight, only we weren't playing music. And the best conversations, you don't even remember what you talked about, only how it felt. It was like we weren't even there, lying together by the pool. It felt like we were in some place your body can't visit. Some place with no ceiling, and no walls, and no floors, and no instruments. And that really should have ended my evening, but instead of going to sleep, I decided to torture myself by reading more Ayala stories. I didn't understand how Davis could like her. She was horrible, totally self-centered, and perpetually annoying. At one party scene, Ray observed, of course, when Ayala's around, it's never really a party, because at parties, people have fun. Eventually, I clicked away from the site, but I couldn't bring myself to put away the computer and go to sleep. Instead, I ended up on Wikipedia reading about fan fiction and Star Wars, and then I found myself reading the same old article about the human microbiota and the studies of how people's microbiome makeup had shaped and, in some cases, killed them. At one point, I came across this sentence: mammal brains receive a constant stream of interoceptive input from the GI tract, which combines with the other introspective information from within the body and contextual information from the environment, before sending an integrated response to target the cells within the GI tract. Though what is commonly called the gut-brain informational axis, but might be better described as the gut-brain informational cycle. I realize that that's not the sort of sentence that fills most people with horror, but it stopped me cold. It was saying that my bacteria were affecting my thinking. Maybe not directly, but through the information that they told my gut to send to my brain. Maybe you're not even thinking this thought. Maybe your thinking's infected. I shouldn't have been reading those articles. Should have gone to sleep. Too late now. I checked the light under the door to make sure that Mom had gone to sleep and snuck over to the bathroom. I changed the Band-Aid, looking carefully at the old one. There was blood. Not a lot, but blood. Faintly pink. It isn't infected. It bleeds because it hasn't scabbed over. But it could be. It isn't. Are you sure? Did you even clean it this morning? Probably. I always clean it. Are you sure? Oh, for fuck's sake. I washed my hands, put on a new Band-Aid, but now I was being pulled all the way down. I opened the medicine cabinet quietly, took out that aloe-scented hand sanitizer. I took a gulp, and then another. Felt dizzy. You can't do this. This shit's pure alcohol. It'll make you sick. Better do it again. Poured some more of it on my tongue. That's enough. You'll be clean after this. Just get one last swallow down. I did. Heard my gut rumbling. Stomach hurt. Sometimes you clear out the healthy bacteria, and that's when C. diff comes in. You gotta watch out for that. Great. You tell me to drink it, and then you tell me not to? Back in my room, sweating over the covers, body clammy and corpse-like. Can't get my head straight. Drinking hand sanitizer is not going to make you healthier, you crazy fuck. But they can talk to your brain. They can tell your brain what to think, and you can't. So who's running the show? Stop it, please. I tried not to think the thought, but like a dog on a leash, I could only get so far from it before I felt the strangling pull against my throat. My stomach rumbled. Nothing worked. Even giving into the thought had only provided a moment's release. I returned to a question Dr. Singh had first asked me years ago. The first time it got this bad. Do you feel like you're a threat to yourself? But which is the threat and which is the self? I wasn't not a threat, but couldn't say to whom or what. The pronouns and objects of the sentences muddied by the abstraction of it all. The words sucked into non-lingual way down. You're a we. You're a you. You're a she. An it. A they. My kingdom for an I. Felt myself slipping. But even that's a metaphor. Descending. But that is too. Can't describe the feeling itself except to say that I'm not me. Forged in the smithy of someone else's soul. Please just let me out. Whoever is authoring me, let me up out of this. Anything to be out of this. But I couldn't get out. 3 flicks. Then 4 arrive. Then many more. Mom woke me up at 6:50. Sleep through your alarm? She asked. I squinted. It was still dark in my room. Excuse me. Take a sip of drink really quick. We're not sponsored. I'm fine, I said. You sure? Yeah, I said, and I pulled myself out of bed. I was at school just 32 minutes later. I didn't look my best, but I'd long ago given up trying to impress the student body of White River High School. Daisy was sitting alone on the front steps. You look sleepy, she said as I walked up. It was cloudy, the kind of day where the sun is the supposition. Long night. How are you? Great, except I haven't seen nearly enough of my best friend lately. Do you want to hang out later? Applebee's. Sure, I said. Also, my mom had to borrow my car, so can we just go together? I made it through lunch, through the standard post-lunch encounter with Mom, worrying over my tired eyes, through history and statistics. In each room, the soul-sucking fluorescent light coated everything in a film of sickness, and the day droned on until the final bell released me at last. I made it to Harold, sat down in the driver's seat, and waited for Daisy. I hadn't been sleeping much, hadn't been thinking straight. That sanitizer is basically pure alcohol. You can't keep drinking that. Should probably call Dr. Singh. But then you'll have to talk to her answering service and tell a stranger that you're crazy. Can't bear the thought of Dr. Singh calling back, voice tinged with sympathy, asking whether I'm taking the medication every day. Doesn't work anyway. Nothing does. 3 different medications and 5 years of cognitive behavioral therapy later. Here we are. I startled awake at the sound of Daisy opening the passenger door. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. I turned the car on, felt my spine straightening. I reversed out of the parking spot and then waited in line to leave campus. You barely changed my name, I said. My voice felt squeaky, but I was finding it. Huh? Ayala, Aza, beginning of the alphabet to the end and back. Gave her compulsions, gave her my personality. Anyone reading it would know how you probably really feel about me. Michael, Davis, everyone at school probably. Aza, Daisy said. My real name sounded wrong in her voice. You're not. Oh, fuck off. I've been writing them since I was 11, and you never read a single one. You never asked. First, I did ask a bunch of times, and then I got tired of you saying you'd read them and never doing it. And second, I shouldn't have to ask. You could take 3 seconds away from your non-stop fucking contemplation of yourself to think about other people's interests. Look, I came up with Ayala in like 7th grade, and it was a dick move, but she's her own character now. She's not you, okay? We were still inching our way through the student parking lot. I mean, I love you, and it's not your fault, but your anxiety does kind of invite disasters. At last, I pulled off campus and headed north up Meridian toward the highway. She kept talking, of course. She always did. I'm sorry, okay? I should have let Ayala die years ago. But yeah, you're right. It is a kind of way of coping with... I mean, Holmesy, you're exhausting. Yeah? All our friendship has gotten you in the last couple months is $50,000 and a boyfriend. You're right. I'm a terrible person. What'd you call me in that story? Useless? I'm useless. Aza, she's not you, but you are extremely self-centered. Like, I know you have the mental problems and whatever, but do they make you... You know. I don't know, actually. They make me what? Michael said that you're like mustard. Great in small quantities, but then a lot of you is a lot. I didn't say anything. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. We were stopped at a red light, and when it turned green, I was somewhat ungentle with Harold's accelerator. I could feel the heat in my cheeks, but couldn't tell if I was about to start crying or screaming. Daisy kept going. But you know what I mean, like, what are my parents' names? I didn't answer. I didn't know the answer. I just took a long breath, trying to push my heartbeat down into my chest. I didn't need Daisy to point out what a shit show I was. I knew. What are their jobs? When was the last time you were at my apartment? 5 years ago? We're supposed to be best friends, Holmesy, and you don't even know if I have any fucking pets. You have no idea what it's like for me, and you're so, like, pathologically uncurious that you don't even know that what you don't know. You have a cat? I whispered. You just have no fucking clue. It's all so fucking easy for you. I mean, you think you and your mom are poor or whatever, but you got braces. You got a car and you got a laptop and all that shit, and you think it's natural. You think it's just normal to have a house with your own room and a mom who helps you with your homework. You don't think you're privileged, but you have everything. You don't know what it's like for me, and you don't ask. I share a room with my annoying 8-year-old sister, whose name you don't know, and then you judge me for buying a car instead of saving it all for college? But you don't know. You want me to be some selfless, proper heroine who's too good for money, but that's bullshit, Holmesy. Being poor doesn't purify you or whatever the fuck. It just sucks. You don't know my life. You haven't taken the time to find out, and you don't get to judge me. Her name is Elena, I said quietly. You think it's so hard for you, and I'm sure it is from inside your head, but you can't get it because your privileges are just like oxygen to you. I thought it would make us the same. I've always been trying to keep up with you, trying to type as fast on my phone as you can on your laptop, and I thought it would make us closer, but it just made me feel like you're spoiled, kind of. Like you've had this all along, and you can't even know how much easier it makes everything because you don't ever think about anybody else's life. I felt like I might throw up. We merged onto the highway. My head was careening. I hated myself, hated her, thought she was right and wrong, and thought I deserved it and didn't. You think it's easy for me? I don't mean. I turned to her. Stop talking! Jesus Christ, you haven't shut up in 10 years. I'm sorry it's not fun to hang out with me because I'm stuck in my head so much, but imagine actually being stuck inside my head with no way out, with no way to ever take a break from it, because that's my life. To use Michael's clever little analogy, imagine eating nothing but mustard, being stuck with mustard all the time. And if you hate me so much, then you better just stop asking me to Holmesy, she shouted, but too late. I looked up only in time to see that I'd been accelerating while the traffic had slowed. I couldn't even get my foot off the brake before we slammed into the SUV in front of us. A moment later, something slammed into us from behind. Tires screeching, honking. Another crash. This one smaller. Then silence. I was trying to catch my breath, but I couldn't, because every breath hurt. I swore, but it just came out as, ugh. I reached for the door only to realize that my seatbelt was still on. I looked over at Daisy, who was looking back at me. Are you okay? She shouted. I realized I was groaning with each exhalation. My ears were ringing. Yeah, I said. You? The pain made me feel dizzy. Darkness encroached at the edge of my vision. I think so, she said. The world narrowed into a tunnel as I struggled for breath. Stay in the car, Holmesy. You're hurt. Do you have your phone? We gotta call 911. The phone. I unbuckled my seatbelt and pushed my door open. I tried to stand, but the pain brought me back into Harold's seat. Oh, fuck. Harold. A woman wearing a business suit knelt down to my eye level. She told me not to move, but I had to. I lifted myself up and the pain blinded me for a minute, but then the black dots scattered so I could see the damage. Harold's trunk was as crumpled as his hood. He looked like a seismograph reading, except for the passenger compartment, which was perfectly intact. He never failed me, not even when I failed him. I leaned on Harold's side as I staggered back to the trunk. I tried to lift the trunk gate, but it was crushed. I started pounding on the trunk with my hands, screaming with every breath, "Fuck, oh God, oh God, oh God, he's totaled! You're kidding me," Daisy said as she walked to the back of Harold. You're upset about the goddamn car? It's a car, Holmesy. We almost died. And you're worried about your car? I pounded on the trunk again until Harold's license plate slid off, but I couldn't get it open. Are you crying about the car? I could see the latch. I just couldn't get it pried open, and whenever I tried to lift, the pain in my ribs made my vision cloud up. But I finally wrested the trunk open enough to reach my arm inside. I fumbled around until I found my dad's phone. The screen was shattered. I held the power button to turn it on, but beneath the branches of broken glass, the screen only glowed a cloudy gray. I pulled myself back to the driver's side door and slumped into Harold's seat, my forehead on the steering wheel. I knew the pictures were backed up, that nothing had really been lost, But it was his phone, you know? He'd held it, talked into it, taken my picture with it. I ran my thumb across the shattered glass and cried until I felt a hand on my shoulder. My name's Franklin. You've been in a car accident. I'm a firefighter. Try not to move. An ambulance is on its way. What's your name? Asa. I'm not hurt. Just hang tight for me, Asa. Do you know what day it is? It's my dad's phone, I said. This is his phone, and... Is this his car? Are you worried he'll be upset? Asa, I've been doing this for a long time, and I can promise you your dad's not mad at you. He's relieved you're okay. I felt like I was getting ripped apart from the inside. The supernova of my sleeves, of myself, simultaneously exploding and collapsing. It hurt to cry, but I hadn't cried in so long, and I didn't really want to stop. Where are you having pain? He asked. I pointed towards the right side of my rib cage. A woman approached and began a conversation about whether I'd need a backboard. I tried to say that I felt dizzy, and then I felt myself falling, even though there was really nowhere to fall. I woke up staring at the ceiling of an ambulance, strapped to a backboard, a man holding an oxygen mask over my face, the sirens distant, my ears still ringing, then falling again, down, and then on a hospital bed in the hallway. Mom over me, makeup dripping from her red eyes. My baby, oh Lord, baby, are you all right? I'm fine, I said. I think I just cracked a rib or something. Dad's phone is broken. Oh, it's okay. We have everything backed up. They called me and told me you were hurt, but they didn't tell me if you were, she said, and then she started crying. She sort of collapsed into Daisy, which is when I noticed that Daisy was there, a red welt on her collarbone. I turned away from them and looked up at the bright fluorescent light above my bed, feeling the hot tears on my face. Finally, my mom said, I can't lose you too. A woman came in and took me away to get a CT scan, and I was sort of relieved to be away from both my mom and Daisy for a while, not to feel the swirl of fear and guilt over being such a failure as a daughter and a friend. Car accident? The woman asked as she pushed me past the word kindness, painted in calligraphy on the wall. Yeah, I said. Those seatbelts will hurt you while saving your life, she said. Yeah. Am I gonna need antibiotics? I'm not your doctor. She'll be in after we get the test. They put something in my IV that made me feel like I was pissing my pants, then ran me through the cylinder of the CT machine, and eventually returned me to the shivering nerves of my mother. I couldn't shake the crack in her voice when she said she couldn't lose me too. I felt her nerves as she paced around the room, texting with my aunt and uncle in Texas, pressing long breaths through pursed lips, dabbing at her eye makeup with a tissue. Daisy didn't say much for once. It's okay if you want to go home, I said to her at one point. Do you want me to go home? She asked. Up to you, I said. Seriously. I'll stay, she answered, and sat quietly, her eyes glancing from me to my mom and back again. What time is it? I have no way of checking the time, you guys. 45 minutes. Okay. 45 minutes, and we get 60, so I still have a little bit of time. Good news and bad news, announced a woman in navy blue scrubs upon entering the room. Bad news, you have a lacerated liver. Good news, it's a mild laceration. We'll watch you closely for a couple days so we can make sure your bleeding doesn't increase, and then you'll be sore for several weeks. But I'm ordering you pain medication now, so you'll be comfortable. Questions? She's going to be okay, my mom asked. Yes, if the bleeding worsens, surgery will be necessary. But based on the radiologist report, I think that will be very unlikely. As the liver's lacerations go, this one is about as good as they get. Your daughter really is quite lucky in the scheme of things. She's going to be okay, my mom said again. As I said, we'll keep a close eye on her for a couple days, and then she'll have about a week of bed rest. Within 6 or so weeks, she should be her old self. My mother dissolved into tears of gratitude as I turned over that phrase, her old self. Do I need antibiotics? I asked. You shouldn't. If we've had to do surgery, you would, but as of right now, no. A shiver of relief rolled through me. No antibiotics. No increased risk of C. diff. Just needed to get the hell out of there then. The doctor asked me about my medications, and I told her. She made some notes in the chart and said, "Someone will be by shortly to take you upstairs, and then we'll get you something for the pain before that." "Wait," I said, what do you mean upstairs?" "As I said, you'll need to spend a couple of nights here so that you can..." "Wait, no, I can't stay in the hospital." "Baby," my mom said, "you have to." "No, I really can't. This is like the one place I absolutely cannot stay tonight, please. Please just let us go home." "That would be inadvisable." "Oh, no. Listen, it's okay. Most people admitted to the hospital go home healthier than when they left it. Almost everyone, really. C. diff infections are only common in post-surgical patients. You won't even be on antibiotics." Oh, no. Of all the places to end up in the tightening gyre, here we were, on the 4th floor of a hospital in Carmel, Indiana. Daisy left once I gotten upstairs, but Mom stayed, lying on her side in the reclining chair next to my hospital bed, facing me. I could feel her breath on me that night as she slept, her lips parted, smudged eyes closed, the microbes from her lungs floating across my cheek. I couldn't roll over onto my side because, even with the medication, the pain was paralyzing, and when I turned my head, her breath just blew my hair across her face, so I lived with it. She stirred, and her eyes locked to mine. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "Does it hurt?" I nodded. "You know, Sundiata in a poem said that the most important part of the body ain't the heart or the lungs or the brain. The biggest, most important part of the body is the part that hurts." Mom put her hand on my wrist and then fell back asleep. Even though I was pretty high on morphine or whatever, I couldn't sleep. I could hear the beeping in the rooms next to mine, and it wasn't particularly dark, and well-meaning strangers kept showing up to pull blood out of my body or check on my blood pressure. And most of all, I knew that C. diff was invading my body and that it was floating in the air. On my phone, I paged through patient stories of how they went to the hospital for a gallbladder surgery or a kidney stone, and they'd come out destroyed. The thing about C. diff is that it's inside of everyone. We all have it lurking there. It's just that sometimes it grows out of control and takes over and begins attacking your insides. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes it happens because you ingest someone else's C. diff, which is slightly different from your own, and starts mixing with yours, and boom! I felt these little jolts all through my arms and my legs as my brain whirred through thoughts, trying to figure out how to make this okay. My IV line beeping. Couldn't even say when I last changed the Band-Aid on my finger. The C. diff, both inside me and around me. It could survive for months outside of a body waiting for a new host. The combined weight of all the large animals in the world, human, cow, penguin, shark, is around 1.1 billion tons. The combined weight of all of the Earth's bacteria is around 400 billion tons. They overwhelm us. For some reason, I started hearing that song, "Can't Stop Thinking About You," in my head. And the more I thought about the song, the weirder it got. Like the chorus, "Can't stop, can't stop, can't stop thinking about you." Imagines that it's somehow sweet or romantic to be unable to turn your thoughts away from someone. But there's nothing romantic or pretty about a boy thinking about you the way that you think about C. diff. Can't stop thinking. Trying to find something solid to hold on to in this roiling sea of thought. The spiral painting. Daisy hates you, and she should. Davis's micro-soaked tongue on your neck. Your mom's warm breaths, hospital gowns clinging to your back soaked with sweat, and in this way down deep, some me screaming, "Get me out of here, get me out of here, get me out, please, I'll do anything." But the thoughts just keep spinning and tightening. The jogger's mouth, the stupidness of Ayala, Asa, and Holmesy, and all my irreconcilable selves, my self-absorption, the filth in my gut. Think about anything other than yourself, you disgusting narcissist. I took my phone and texted Daisy. "I'm so sorry I haven't been a good friend. I can't stop thinking about it." She wrote back immediately. "It's fine. How are you?" Me. "I do care about your life, and I'm sorry I haven't shown it." Daisy. Holmesy, calm down. Everything is fine. I'm sorry we fought. We'll make up for it. It'll be fine. Me, I'm just really sorry. I can't think straight. Daisy, stop apologizing. Are you on sweet pain meds? I didn't reply, but I couldn't stop thinking about Daisy, about Ayala, and most of all about the bugs inside and outside of me. And I knew I was being selfish by even making a big deal out of it, making other people's real C. diff infections about my hypothetical one. Reprehensible. Pinched my finger with my thumbnail to attest to this moment's reality, but can't escape myself. Can't kiss anyone, can't drive a car, can't function in the actual censored populated world. How could I even fantasize about going to some far-off school far away where you pay a fortune to live in dorms full of strangers with communal bathrooms and cafeterias and no private spaces to be crazy in? I'd be stuck here for college. If I could ever get my thinking straightened enough to even attend, I'd live in my house with my mom and then afterward too. I could never become a functioning grown-up like this. It was inconceivable that I'd ever have a career. In job interviews, they'd ask me, "What's your greatest weakness?" And I'd explain I'll probably spend a good portion of the workday terrorized by thoughts I'm forced to think, possessed by a nameless and formless demon, so that if it's going to be an issue, you might not want to hire me. Thoughts are just a different kind of bacteria, colonizing you. I thought about the gut-brain information access. Maybe you're already gone. The prisoners run the jail now. Not a person, so much as a swarm. Not a bee, but the hive. I couldn't stand my mother's breath on my face. My palms were sweating. I felt myself slipping away. You know how to deal with this. Can you turn over? I whispered, but she responded only with breath. You just need to stand up. I picked up my phone to text Daisy, but now the letters were blurred out on the screen and full panic gripped me. See the hand sanitizer mounted on the wall near the door? It's the only way. That's stupid. If it worked, alcoholics would be the healthiest people in the world. You're just going to sanitize your hands and your mouth. Please fucking think about something else. Stand up. I hate being stuck inside you. You are me. I am not. You are we. I am not. You want to feel better. You know how to feel better. It'll just make me barf. You'll be clean and you can be sure. I can never be sure. Stand up. Not even a person, just a deeply flawed line of reasoning. You want to stand up. The doctor said stay in bed, and the last thing needed is a surgery. You will get up and wheel your IV cart. Let me up out of this. Wheel your IV cart to the front of the room, please. And you will pump the hand sanitizer foam into your hands, clean them carefully, and then you will pump more foam into your hands, and you will put that foam into your mouth. Swish it around your filthy teeth and gums. But that stuff has alcohol in it that my damaged liver will have to process. Do you want to die of C. diff? No, but this is not rational. Then get up and wheel your IV cart to the container of hand sanitizer mounted on the goddamn wall, you idiot! Please let me go. I'll do anything. I'll stand down. You can have this body. I don't want it anymore. You will stand up. I will not. I am my way, not my will. You will stand up. Please. You will go to the hand sanitizer. Cogito ergo non sum. Sweating. You already have it. Nothing hurts like this. You've already got it. Please stop. Please, God, stop. You'll never be free of this. You'll never be free of this. You'll never get yourself back. You'll never get yourself back. Do you want to die of this? Do you want to die of this? Because you will. You will. You will. You will. You will. You will. I pulled myself to standing. For a moment I thought I might faint as the pain blazed through me. I grabbed a hold of the IV pole and took a few shuffling steps. I heard my mom stirring. I didn't care. Pressed the dispenser, rubbed the foam all through my hands, pressed it again, and shoved a scoop of it into my mouth. Asa, what are you doing? My mom asked. I was so fucking embarrassed, but I did it again because I had to. Asa, stop it! I heard my mom getting up and knew my window was closing, so I took a third shot of the foam and stuffed it into my mouth, gagging. A spasm of nausea lurched through me and I vomited, the pain in my ribs blinding as Mom grabbed me by the arm. There was yellow bile all over my pale blue hospital gown. A voice came in from a speaker somewhere behind me. "This is Nurse Wallace. My daughter is vomiting. I think she drank hand sanitizer." I knew how disgusting I was. I knew now for sure. I wasn't possessed by a demon. I was the demon. Woo! Guys, oh my gosh. Wowee. Okay, so that's where we're gonna stop today. Man, that's intense. That's crazy. Not that Ace is crazy. No, don't, let me clarify. So if you've ever personally suffered with intrusive thoughts, they very much are like talking to someone else. And in Daisy's case, she is so haunted by hers that she has lost control of her behavior. She tries to fight off those thoughts and is unable to, and she hasn't been on her meds properly. We know that already. Wow, just that was so good. Her argument with her best friend and the way that they worked out their issues but kind of didn't also at the same time. Arguing while driving, for the record, is never a good idea. Not at all. Just wowie, that was really great. This book has just gotten to the meat of some things. And she had such a romantic experience with Davis. Oh my god, when they were at the pool and he was sharing his innermost feelings about her, even though she was feeling kind of bad about the way that her friend had written her fictional counterpart in her Star Wars story. But yeah, wow, that was so good. It was so good. And Daisy's mom, oh my gosh, she was so still hurt from the loss of her husband, and now that she almost lost her daughter, she's, having her own problems. And, Daisy does realize that these other people are having issues, they're having problems, but for whatever reason, sometimes when you are consumed by a mental illness that you can't control and have no control over, it does sort of take away that lens that you can look at other people through, and it tends to be a microscope that you're only looking into yourself. And it's not a good way to be, and you do have to learn coping techniques and go to therapy and, take care of those issues so that you can focus on something other than whatever it is that's haunting you inside your own head. But dear Lord, that was to find out she didn't know, her best friend didn't think she even knew her sister's name, or if she had a pet, or where she lived. And I remember speaking with Annika before about, I'm not sure if I like Daisy or not, but, if you did get money all of a sudden, you would buy things, and they weren't like superfluous things. They were things that were needed. And yeah, it's because she's poor, and they are things that she needed. And she did get money for once and bought things that most people would take for granted. And that's probably why Aza was angry with her, because she didn't realize that it was something that she took for granted. She thought, oh, well, everybody's got, what they need. And why would you spend money if someone told you not to? Oh, you're being irresponsible. But yeah, it's just interesting to see all these characters' different perspectives. And next time we will read through is going to be next Friday. And we're at the end of the book pretty much. I think we have maybe like 2 or 3 chapters left, and that's it. So we're going to save our craft for next time, because we're going to be doing a crossword, and it's going to involve all of the entire book. And I'm loving it so much, you guys. Thank you for joining us today and watching, and we'll post on Facebook. We'll do cross posts with YouTube also with the better camera, because this looks terrible. And this one over there, looks much better. And maybe it'll sound better. But I do appreciate Sheila letting me use it. It's just the lighting makes me look like a monster, and I I'm inside my own head at this moment and just hating my reflection that I'm seeing. So, apart from that, thank you so much for joining us. Let me know what you think in the comments on either. And yeah, cool beans. Thank you.